We've seen many cases where people have started blogs to talk about their divorce case and talk about how the judge and the lawyers are acting, and the judge will tell them to shut down the blog. Even though they have First Amendment rights to continue that blog, the judge will often use the children as an excuse to shut down the blog. They'll say, well, you know, it's not in the best interest of your children for you to be criticizing me, the judge, therefore shut down your blog. And if they don't shut down the blog, we have cases in the movie where the judge puts them in jail.
Do you think that it is tougher on men, or is it about the same?
I could go on for an hour on this very subject. First of all, we tried to make the movie gender neutral. And that's why we used examples of men and women victims in the system. And we tried to be as balanced as possible. You know, I really believe that if we're going to get true reform in the United States, we need the support of both men and women. And so I wanted to make sure that women who saw the movie would not be offended by it. And I think we succeeded in that. There's actually, there are a group of women, I will call them the anti-domestic violence lobby, and they have been victims of domestic violence, and they have, in some cases, fought hard to get custody, sole custody of their children, because they believe that if the children go with their father, the father is going to be abusive, and that will be harmful to the children. And I really believe many of these women have good intentions. However, it is, you know, created a situation where sometimes they are too vociferous in court about how bad the male is, and the judge will award custody to the male because the male seems to be a nice guy, he's cooperating, he's saying, yeah, I'll let the kids see their mom at any time, and the mom's saying, I'll never let the children see that abuser. And so the judge says, well, it's not in the best interest of the children to go with the mom because they'll never see their father, so they award custody to the father. And so there are a lot of women out there right now that are terribly upset with the family courts because of this reverse polarity situation. But if you look at the statistics, and if you look at the financial statistics, 90% of child support is paid to women by men, and 95% of alimony is paid to women by men. And I think that just comes from, you know, our historical roots. However, the family courts, you know, they've been ordered to try to be as gender neutral as they can be. And what's really very interesting is that they've gone from being gender biased to, let's call it, provider biased. And they like when there's a provider and a dependent, because when there's a provider and a dependent, they can order child support awards and they can order alimony awards. And that's the business they're in, of computing alimony and computing child support for the most part. And so you take away the provider-dependent relationship and bring in equal parents, those that are both making money and both on equal economic footings. The family courts don't like that because there's no business for them in those cases. And so
You can do that on a spreadsheet.
You could do that on a spreadsheet. So they perpetuate the provider-dependent relationship, even when it's not appropriate. And the lawyers will do this very expensive investigation called discovery to determine how much money each parent makes and what their earnings capability is and what their pension plans are like, et cetera, even in cases where there's never going to be any alimony paid because both are working spouses. And yet the lawyers still have an excuse to spend all this time and bill their clients for all that expense. There's one other thing I'm not sure you're aware of. It's called Title IV defunding. It's part of the Social Security program in the United States. In the Clinton administration, they recognized that not all child support was being paid. In fact, only about 50 or 60% of child support that was awarded was actually being collected. And so they gave federal money to the states to incentivize the states to collect child support. And there are matching dollars, there are federal matching dollars for every dollar of child support and sometimes alimony that's collected. Well, this has incentivized the states to keep the child support bandwagon going, even though women now make, women aged 25 to 35 now make 94% of what men make. And if you control for same job description and same education, it's 100%. And if you look at all women, it's about 85%. It's, you know, women's income is greater than it's ever been historically in the United States. Yet the amount of alimony and child support keeps going up every year. And it's now 30% higher, controlled for inflation, than it was 20 years ago in the United States. And I believe it's because of these perverse incentives for the states to collect more money from the federal government for every dollar of child support that they award and then collect, and for the lawyers to make more money to do all the discovery and investigation that goes along with determining what the amount of alimony and child support should be. So the incentives are all in favor of supporting the old provider-dependent model because everybody makes more money that way, yet society is changing rapidly away from that model. And so you get a very, very dysfunctional system.
Yeah, and a thought that popped into my head, Joseph, as well, was that, as far as I understand it, child support is not paid primarily by fathers who don't have access to their children. In other words, if the father is active and involved and an equal part of the relationship with his children, then he genuinely and generally tends to pay. And so, in a way, there's a weird incentive to make to marginalize the husband, therefore to reduce his likelihood of paying child support, and therefore to get more of this money from the federal government.
Absolutely. Again, completely upside down incentives. Completely upside down incentive. I mean, it's ridiculous some of the things that go on with. There's a situation with domestic violence in inner cities where you just have to have a neighbor report a loud argument, and the police come and they have to arrest someone. So they'll typically arrest, not always, but they'll typically arrest the male. They'll put the male in jail. He can't afford to make bail because he's penniless. And so he has to sit in jail unless he agrees to sign a document that says that he won't see his wife and children for 7 years and not make phone contact, email contact, nothing for 7 years. That's how he gets out of jail. Otherwise, he has to wait in jail for 3 months to have a court hearing. Well, what are you doing? You're creating fatherless homes this way. I mean, there are just so many results of good intentions that have gone wrong in the family law system. The whole thing needs a reboot from the very beginning. And I advocate that we look at the Scandinavian model and try to use that for guidance this time around.